We're live.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Legislative Committee of St. Louis Public Schools on Thursday, August 14th, 2025. Motion to approve the draft minutes from the previous meeting. Can I get a motion?
I'm going to approve the draft minutes from previous minutes.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I don't know who's taking roll. Do a roll call.
I don't have a list. I'd be happy to do the minutes for today's meeting. Do you have a list of members?
Yes, I do have a list of members.
I could borrow your sheet for a moment.
You may, absolutely. Thank you. Just at the end there, and then it flips to the next page.
Dr. Collins Adams. Mr. Conover,
Here. Or yes, sorry.
Dr. Borishade,
Yes.
Dr. Berry,
Yes.
and I apologize if I don't know everybody's prefixes. Mr. Clemens,
Present.
Ms. Johnson,
Present.
Mr. Charles,
Patrick Charles.
Yeah, hold on. Present.
Ms. Nolan,
You just muted yourself.
Present.
Dr. Dino,
Present.
Ms. Fantini, I'm sorry.
Present.
Thank you. Mr. Carroll,
Here.
Dr. Pollock,
Present.
thank you.
Yeah.
We have a quorum.
That was a yes vote on the minutes, but. I think we're okay.
Yes.
Do we need to edit anything with Ms. McLaughlin? I know we had some presents and things like that, but that was for the minutes. Approval of the minutes.
That the roll call was for approval of the minutes.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, great. Everybody is aware we approved the minutes. We're good.
Yes.
Mr. Charles, Mr. Clemens, I can see your faces, so. Ms. Nolan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to item 3.1, 2025 General Assembly Review, and I'm gonna hand the floor over to Mr. Carroll.
Well, thank you very much. Basically, on the previous legislative session, I gave my report to the school board at the end of the session, so you kind of know basically what happened. We were able to stop a lot of bad legislation, quite frankly. And I'm very happy about that, although we were not able to stop the $50 million of direct GR into the voucher program. However, we said at the time, we were willing to get the 300 million in the formula, but that we thought that the 50 million would be unconstitutional. And I think I'm going to prove myself right on that, because the NEA, as you probably know, has filed a lawsuit against the state stating they cannot use 50 million of GR to go directly into a tax credit voucher. I think where they made a mistake in the governor's office is while they put the money in, they didn't change the statute. And the statute only allows for tax credits, not direct GR. So I think they'll be successful in that. So I imagine next year they'll be coming back and trying to change the statute so they can use GR. So we'll see how that plays out. Really, the only legislation that made it across the line was Senate Bill 68, and it had various small provisions in it, but probably the school safety provisions were the most onerous to school districts. However, DESE is yet to come up with the rules and regs for the school districts to follow in certain things like establishing their safety coordinator and a substitute safety coordinator. And then the big issue was as far as the school districts having to have secure doors, interior and exterior. But none of that will take place because it's all subject to appropriation. So until the legislature appropriates money for school districts to do that, it's kind of off the hook. I mean, that's basically because of the Hancock Amendment. The state can't pass down any unfunded mandate to local political subdivisions. So that's kind of where we're at on that. The one provision in 68 was the snow days. So if you're going to 5 days, you get the extra additional 1% to the formula, even though I don't think that will affect us because we're not really getting any state aid local. So that's kind of where we're at with this past session. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Also, we were able to fix and the amount of money that we put into the retirement system here in the city. So that was part of House Bill 147, which was our language that we wanted and the amount that we agreed to. So with that, I'll be happy to answer the questions. Otherwise, we can start talking about the potential for next year.
I just, not really a question, but I just want to say it was great that we could cooperate together between the pension fund, the district and the union and move that legislation forward and have it signed into law. A great victory for all of us collectively.
I agree.
Thank you.
I do have some, I want to make sure that with Senate Bill 68, because that is, has a lot to do with safety, and we just want to make sure that we are on the right track. So we've done our cell phone policy that was approved at our board meeting on August 12th. Thank you all for making that happen. And then we have our EOPs, our emergency operation plans that all of the schools are going to be updating and sharing out. Then the other thing is the assessments that we do at the beginning of the year. The principals did it last year. And so we are moving to a new system, Raptor, to make sure that those things happen. When I was reading about this primary and secondary school safety coordinator, so we're saying that that doesn't have to happen this year?
Yes, I mean, whenever it does happen, I mean, you know, as the act requires, districts designate primary and secondary school coordinator rather than one designated. Each school district shall ensure a safe coordinator. You got to complete the training. And then.
And so we're going to partner with Local 420 because they do a great ALICE training, and we're going to partner with them. They did it last year for one of their schools, and so we're going to be working to see that we can get a schedule to have those things done for everyone this year as well.
Okay, because once you appoint them, they have 1 year to get their training.
Okay.
So, I mean, basically, the law took effect August 1.
Yeah, can I make a correction to that? It's not ALICE training, it's AVERT training. The two are different.
Okay. But we did ALICE training last year, but it's AVERT training. Okay.
Right. The difference between AVERT and ALICE is like a all online based, and AVERT is like an in-person, teaches you skills that you can use in case of a shooting. So it's just a little bit different.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and then we do have the Courage to Report. That is our anonymous reporting system that we already use.
Good.
Now CPR training, so that is not mandatory for every staff member at this point.
That's good.
Okay, I just want to make sure, and we have the things that we need. The bullet resistant film. We know that we have that on many of our schools, but we need to just make sure it's on all of them. Okay. So you've answered my questions there. Thank you. Anyone else have questions?
That's a great questions. Any additional questions? Okay. Anybody online?
I do want to say we did CPR training for all the pre-K teachers and their teaching assistants. And 3 weeks after we did the training, a little one needed CPR, and they actually saved them in the classroom. So it's really invaluable. Also, there are providers out there who should do that for free. That's one of the things we could look at.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Mr. Clemens.
Every year at the early learning training, they offer the CPR for anyone who's not up to date. And so they just had that this week too, as part of their training.
I think you should be
Oh.
louder so they can hear.
Every year at the early learning training, the CPR is always offered to the pre-K teachers and their teacher assistants for anyone who needs it to be up to date. And they had that again this year as well.
Okay, you know. Without seeing any additional questions, we'll move on to item 4, the legislative platform 2026. Mr. Carroll, I believe you have a proposal here for us, is that right?
Yeah, it's just a rough draft. I hope that everyone got a copy of it. I kind of went off of last year's legislative platform, but I've condensed it. I think it's just, last year was too much. We need to concentrate on certain key points,
Yes.
in my opinion. I mean, for an example, the Kansas City, the Cooperating School District, Greater Kansas City, and that's the 34 school districts on the western side of the state, Kansas City, Independence, Grandview, Raytown. I mean, they have the same issues almost identical to what we deal. And I helped them develop their legislative platform. And it's just a 2-pager, and it works really good. And so I put together a 2-pager here, and obviously, you know, we can add to it, subtract to it, whatever you feel comfortable with, but I just thought it's a starting point of a work document. I think, though, and I would strongly suggest that we have key legislative priorities that we care about and start off the platform with those, just as the way that the Cooperating School District Kansas City did. So I'd be happy to go through with them. The mission statement is almost identical to last year's. I tweaked it somewhat. You know, I'm certainly not written in stone. Whatever you all want to do as a board and administration is fine with me. But I mean, if you want to go through each of the key legislative priorities, then however you want to do it.
I think that sounds good. Yeah,
Sure.
let's start there. Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, the first one is to make sure the General Assembly agreed when they passed 727 2 years ago that they would fully implement it and fully fund it. Now, some of the dollars we will receive, although we don't really get anything through the formula. Additionally, just because the governor is looking at doing a new formula with recommendations after next December, I think we need to make sure that we make sure the General Assembly commits to fully funding 727 until it's fully implemented over the next 5 years. So I think that's important. The second bullet point, I think it's important that they fully fund the transportation fund. That is key to us with our transportation costs. Plus, I think they need to do away with the state efficiency calculation that hurts us because of our magnet school transportation costs. We have to do that because of the DSEG settlement agreement. It has nothing to do with the efficiency. We know it's the most inefficient transportation out there. And so they call it the FIRE calculation. And so we can lose up to 30% of our funding in transportation if we are considered inefficient. And we are because of the magnet schools. If you take that 30% and give it back to us, I mean, that's about $1.5 million we could get in additional funds. So I think it's important to try to have some legislation next year that we do that. Unfortunately, it was part of the open enrollment bill, trying to entice some city legislators to vote for it to get that, but that's not quite worth it. So we need to get it in a separate piece of legislation if possible. The third bullet point, I think we need to continue to support legislation that was like the bill that was introduced this year in the Senate, that before any new charter schools are started anywhere in the state, that they got to get approval from the State Department that they're needed, and that also the locally elected school board from that district has submitted documentation in support of that. Otherwise, no new charters. We have too many schools in this city for the amount of students that we have. And while we're closing our schools, the charter schools can just go and open up a new school if they want to. And so I think there's got to be some stops to that.
And I think there needs to be a codified way, like you said, a form that says, no, there's no need.
Right.
And so they would look for that form, and it's not, if everybody's doing it differently. Yeah, I think there needs to be a codified way. When you see this form pop up, you know that that's a no.
Is there a way to tie in the abolition of the Robin Wabi's group?
The charter.
Because the issue really is, if I'm to understand it correctly, is that the Charter Commission can open schools however they like, even though the Board of Education is the ultimate one responsible for the education, in the city, right? And it's kind of like taking control from the taxpayers.
Well, I mean, what the legislation that was introduced last year in the Senate takes that power away from the Charter School Commission and gives it to the state board ultimately, which I believe they should be the last ones to determine that, along with the local school board from that district that the charter school's in. I think they need to sign off.
Right. I like that idea. Like, I mean, maybe that's too much of a frontal assault on Robin Wabi, but to say, hey, the local school district, and not just make it about SLPS because we know that they hate St. Louis, but to say the local school district has to sign off on the opening of this charter school. Is that what you're saying? If I'm to understand. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
And
I have
also,
a question. They sign off, you're saying the
You have to
actual
agree.
need.
Yeah, you have to agree to it. Plus, they have to sign off on it.
Right. So the
local
board gets a
school
vote, right?
They have to be a part of that decision. So if they say, no, we don't need it,
Okay.
then the state board's going to go along.
and you mentioned, Steve, about took power away from the state school board and gave it to the Charter School Commission, which has no real accountability, and we have no representation on it. No one from the St. Louis area at all is on Robin Wabi's group. So it's usurping control from the state board as well as local control.
Absolutely. I mean, there's legislation too that's out there that's saying that no charter school in the state can open and operate unless the local school board is the overseer of that charter school. They're the board and not some different board that the charter school wants. So,
I had a
which isn't bad
question.
legislation either. Because the majority of school districts aren't going to want to open up a charter school. The local school boards are.
And this only affects Columbia, us, Kansas City, and Riverview. Is it Riverview? Or are those the ones where charters can operate?
Yes.
Normandy.
Normandy, sorry.
That's right. Ms. Nolan?
I had a question about the what was the legislation? What was the bill last year that was introduced?
Yes. I can't remember the number off the top of my head.
Okay.
can
If
get
you
that
could
for us.
share that
I'll get
information.
it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I like to look it up right now. I'll give it to you before the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Just a quick question here. So I'm very supportive of these sorts of legislation that put more restrictions on the opening of charter schools. As we know, as Mr. Charles, Mr. Clemens, Ms. Mullen have all indicated, these things happen without much control from the local school board, if any input from the local school board on these matters. Is this something that you think we can get support for in Jeff City? And I'm wondering specifically, I know we have really good connections with rural school districts who are facing more and more cuts, more and more losses of money. Is this something where they might start worrying that charter school expansion may happen across the state? I know there's been bills about that before, and they might team up with us on something like this.
Yeah, I mean, we talked with outstate legislators. I mean, they're worried about charter school expansion going all across the state.
Right.
And obviously, though, charter schools probably aren't going into some of the small rural districts. They want to go to where the kids are. So San Joe, Springfield, Cape Girardeau, now they're in Columbia. So, but yes, we have coalitions there that are willing to work together. That's Speaker of the House right there trying to call. But the problem runs into is in the Senate, where you get 2 or 3 or 4 senators standing up that are big charter school proponents, and they'll filibuster. So, but that doesn't mean that we quit trying, because we got to keep this issue before the General Assembly. Because maybe one of these days the General Assembly will shift enough that we can, instead of playing defense all the time, we can play on offense.
Great, thank you. That's a great answer.
Realistically, though, if the governor is a proponent of charter schools, how do you think this will stand up at next election or next introduction of the bill when you have the governor is pushing for more charter schools, especially in urban and metropolitan areas.
Sure is. I mean, this governor is an education choice governor, plain and simple. I mean, he's going to try to play on that in the next election. However, next year, there's a group of educators that are trying to put on the ballot in the constitutional amendment that no money whatsoever, tax credits or whatever, will go to any parochial, private, or homeschool. And so they're going to try to do a grassroots effort, and we'll see what happens. Because in my opinion, as long as this governor's in office, you're going to have to try to go around him and go directly to the people.
He is managing to burn some of his bridges with both sides of the aisle.
Yes. So, I mean, there was a lot of pain with some Republican senators approving that $50 million. But most of them did it with the understanding that they thought it would be held unconstitutional, because they didn't change the statute. So we'll see what happens.
Steve, let us know when it's appropriate. Dr. Charles and I have something that you might consider adding to the as a proposal.
Sure. Let me just go through everything, and then we can throw anything out or we can put anything in. I don't care. I'm not the author of what you all decide to do. I'm just putting out some things. The next bullet point, make sure that we work with the governor's task force while they're looking at drafting a new foundation formula. I'm very concerned that this group that the governor put together is not pro-public education. There's only one superintendent, Jeremy Tucker from Liberty, on there, but there's several proponents of charter schools. There are people on there that have no idea what a foundation formula even looks like that are making these recommendations. I can't believe it. And the governor has instructed them that under no circumstances, any new formula proposed can have any more money than currently what's already in the formula. Well, that's absurd. I mean, with inflation and everything, money, there has to be a way in the new foundation formula for it to grow. And just one of the examples, if there is a new formula and you continue to have the weighted factors, which English second language, free reduced lunch, IEP, there also, we believe, needs to be an additional 25% weighted factor for homelessness or students with high mobility, because we know it costs more to educate them. We're seeing this in the cities, and we think that's very important. And we want to make sure that if they continue to have the weighted factors, that we include that in the formula as well.
Steve, they'd be able to use the McKinney-Vento designation for that.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
To be able to calculate that. That's what you're thinking. Okay. Thank you.
The next one is just the obvious. We oppose using our tax dollars diverted to ESA vouchers, blah, blah, blah. And then the other, oppose any statewide mandate for open enrollment. Period. School districts need to be using their resources to educate kids, not to compete with one another through advertising and what they're going to offer. Not to mention, we've seen this in Kansas, where then school districts are out trying to recruit athletes to come to their district. And it's a nightmare. So we think that that's very important that we stop that. So those are some of the key. Obviously, we can subtract some if you don't think they should be in there, or add to some of our key legislative priorities. Again,
can I suggest that we think about adding a reduction, or lowering the compulsory school age to like 5 in a metropolitan school district? I believe, isn't that how the laws are written? Like that's how they single out St. Louis, is with the terminology metropolitan. Is that possible?
There's a metropolitan school district in the statute, urban school district, which is Kansas City, and then the rest of the schools.
Right. So like if they're carving out, if they can just carve out, I mean, it doesn't have to be the whole state, but just at least St. Louis, where, right now I think it's 7. And if we lower it to 5, especially if you're expecting test results at 3rd grade, then it's logical to follow that you should have kids in school to meet those test result expectations.
I would agree with you 100%. Let me give you a little history, though, of what I've had to deal with. Part of and I think I sent you examples of our past successes in the St. Louis Public Schools, which is part of our legislative package. The last bullet point, I was successful as a lobbyist on the dropout age. It used to be you could drop out at 16. Now we raised it to 17. And many outstate legislators didn't, I only wanted it for St. Louis Public Schools. And many outstate legislators didn't want it at the time because they thought more money would flow to this district through the foundation formula. But we're just trying to keep kids in school and make sure they graduate. I used the argument that because of the DSEG settlement agreement, we have to keep our average daily attendance up so high, and we were trying to follow that at the time. And if you let us do it, this will help us. Otherwise, we could end up back in federal court. And so they agreed to, at that time, to raise the dropout age to 17 just for us. But now, all the school districts said, hey, that's a pretty good idea. And so they used our language and did it statewide for everybody else, and that's the law. So, I mean, yes, we could start off trying to get the age down to 5 to help us, but I lay it 10 to 1. We were successful in getting that. Other school districts wanted as well.
So do you think it would be like, because I feel like when you're talking about the dropout age, you just went by a year. Are you like, you know, slowly progressing it down to 5, go 6 and then 5, or just shoot for 5? Is that what you think?
I just go for 5.
Okay.
And if the rest of the state follows suit, that would be a good thing. It really is critical, and for this district that started public kindergarten, we really would look good making it mandatory.
Certainly can. If we want to do that as a committee, then I would recommend taking out one of these others, and because you've got to just have a handful of key legislative priorities, in my opinion. I mean, because remember, let's just be honest, the majority of legislators aren't even going to look at this document. I mean, they don't care. I mean, they got so much stuff going on. And so, but we know what it is. And I can use this as my Bible when I go there. This is what we care about. This is what we need. You can go back and look. It's one of our key priorities. That's why it's important. So, but again, I think I've done this a long time, and having been a former legislator too, there's so much that you have to read and the bills and everything. You just don't have time for this. And so that's why I think you just need a handful of key priorities. So there's certainly, I mean, we touch on it in state funding and others. You could take out the oppose any legislation proposal to divert taxpayer dollars from public education. We already know that. I mean, you could take that out and add your 5-year-olds in its place if you want to, because I touch on that in other parts of the document.
If everyone concurs, that would be great with us.
I mean, that's just a suggestion.
Understood.
I work for you. You don't work for me. You tell me what you want.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. I had a couple questions on, I just kind of want to start with going into the 2026 legislative session. Are there key issues on the minds of legislators that perhaps we could use to help advance our agenda?
I'm more worried about us playing defense because of the nasty state auditor's report and the audit on us. We're going to have to put out fires for that. And that's why the superintendent and I have talked that we need to have our responses to each of those recommendations or things. We need to get that out there. Because there's been talk of Kehoe, like nothing more to come in and state take this district over. And this just added fuel to the fire. So we're going to have to play defense in 2026 a lot to make sure nothing like that happens.
So just as an idea, bearing that in mind, should local control be do you think that might be something to add to the key legislative priorities, just given the context?
Yeah, I think so.
Of course, committee would have to go, but yeah.
Sure, no, and we've got the local control issues on the
Yes,
second
of course,
page, and
right.
certainly that school district, the local school district needs to make all these decisions. That's on state point board, so we can
Right.
certainly add a bullet point. I mean, that's easy enough to do.
I think where my head's at, and part of the reason I asked the initial question was to make sure that our priorities are aligned as much as possible. Well, maybe not aligned. Aligned is probably not the right word, but are as responsive as possible and as set up to be as effective as possible for you in the legislature when you're advocating for us. So that was where my head was at on that.
I mean, Carla May and Steve Roberts have done a good job helping us, but you got to remember they're in the severe minority with only 10 Democrats in the Senate, and it's tough. But we've won our battles, and I mean we've been able to stop a lot of bad stuff because of the filibuster. And our Democrats there stand strong, who are pro public education, and so we get some of our wins based upon some compromises. All right, we'll let you have this, but you're going to have to get a few things. And I mean Doug Beck's been very good at that, obviously. So it's again, with this legislature, it's just we're on the defense a lot of times.
Yes.
Most of the time, quite frankly.
Yeah, and that's a good opportunity, I think, for us to continue to thank the legislators that do stand with us on our key issues. So thank you. Wanted to circle back to, we didn't talk about it today, but we talked about it previously. The governor ended up line item vetoing the money appropriation for the reading program. Is that something that we think is possible to get back on the budget?
I've already talked to the chairman of the appropriations, Senator Lincoln Huff, who's a dear friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he'd be happy to put it back in again for next year. And I'm very fortunate. I think that we've been able to get that appropriation for 4 years in a row. That's $10 million that no other school district got. And quite frankly, it's the largest line item for any school district ever in the state.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I was very disappointed. I talked to Carla May a week before he vetoed it. She thought it was good. And she talked to him. Well, evidently it wasn't. So he decided to take it out. Unfortunately, I guess he thinks $1.5 billion from Kansas City Chiefs and Kansas City Royals is more important than kids learning how to read in St. Louis public schools. So we're somewhat disappointed, but no, we're going to go ahead and put it back in there again and hopefully we can have a sit down discussion with him next year to see. But I mean, the budgets are going to be very tight. I know that. He lined out and vetoed everything that he didn't suggest. Totally unlike Mike Parson.
Yeah.
And so very, very disappointed. I thought the governor would be more pro public education, but it's just having grown up in the city of St. Louis, it's just not the case, unfortunately. We're going to continue that fight regardless.
We appreciate your continued advocacy for us on that issue, even given the challenges that we're now facing on that front. I was hoping you could help clear up something for me. I've been involved in trying to reduce the use of tax incentives and tax abatements across the city for quite some time now. And when I talk to folks who have more legal expertise than I do about these issues, there seems to be, at least locally among activists, among folks who support the local school district, some confusion around what could be done at the state level versus what could be done at the local level in order to try to continue to support funding coming to the schools. I know on here there's a line, I think it's in the opposed section.
It's local control.
Under local control, that we have more control over tax payment projects, such as the local school districts having a say, a unanimous support kind of say in those votes. Obviously very supportive of that. And I think that's the right way to go at the local level. We're talking mostly about the state here. Could you help us understand better how we can fight this at the state?
Fight it at the state?
Maybe fight's not there. To support legislation that will make it easier for us to reduce the impact of tax incentives on our district.
We were able to pass legislation 2 years ago in the House, got it over to the Senate, that would allow the local school board to opt out of any TIF, any tax abatement.
And that would succeed, yeah.
And so, but in the Senate, they took it out of the substitute because they had 3 senators that avoid, filibuster. So unfortunately, I mean, the big contractors, the general contractors have a huge lobby, of course, down there, and business interests. And so it's very difficult to fight them now. All the public school lobby is certainly supportive of this. And so, it's just button heads if we can just find some type of happy medium where we could even vote to abate 50% of it where we go to school. I mean, there's some compromises we can do. And so, but I have to keep it pretty general because legislation changes through and, whatever substitute bill might be in there, will it be the good enough language that we can support? Is it not? And so, believe me, we have tried. It's just tough when it gets big business.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely. And then
I still think we need to keep it in
I agree.
our agenda.
And I know it's because we're seeing incentives come through right now at the local level, then the real estate committee and the board have been very focused on trying to reduce some of the impacts of those. So I think it continues to be something at the top of my mind. The last question is, you mentioned that there is some work going on among educators around ballot initiatives.
Yes.
So this is a bit of news to me, and I was hoping to see how we could learn more, how people can get involved in those kind of things if they so choose.
Well, this is what I know about it because it's really coming from the Cooperating School District of Greater Kansas City and Education Plus has looked at it. And so there's an education attorney that drafted the language. And so they have put it into the Secretary of State to get the title language, the ballot language that they would like to have. Now, we're going to have to go out and gather the signatures, and they don't have a lot of money to do it. So it's going to be grassroots. You know, we're going to have sign up petition sheets from PTA meetings all across the state, from, you know, after school board meetings, and ask parents to sign it. And I think that they can be successful in getting it on the ballot. Then it is going to have to be a grassroots, because the education choice people will come out and try to throw tons of money at it. You know, try to develop their language on, you know, how to fight this. Well, they don't want to give parents choice and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, no, we're trying to protect public education and the taxpayer. So they're just in the beginning stages of it, but they have time. That's kind of their game plan, I think, because they know they don't have the money to go and hire signature gatherers outside of Walmart. So it's going to have to come from education settings with 521 local school districts to get that done. So I think if it gets on the ballot, I think we can raise some money statewide to do it. And by golly, I think the parents and the taxpayers would support it. I really do.
Yeah.
You got to remember, the city of St. Louis, citizens have never got to vote on whether they want to charter schools here in the city. You know, the outstate legislators back in 781 passed in 1998, you know, thought, yeah, we're not going to experiment on Columbia or Springfield. We're going to experiment in Kansas City and St. Louis and let them be the guinea pigs. And we've seen what's happened. And now nobody else wants it. So, yeah, I think if it gets on the ballot, I think it would be a very good debate, and I think we can pass it.
I certainly share your view that when the facts are laid out, the truth is laid out about the situation with education choice and public education, that more often than not, the voters support public education. So,
Absolutely.
I lied. I do have one more question for
Okay.
you.
Before you move on, I did want to just kind of chime in to ask how could parents support that effort. You know, you talk about signature gathering and things like that, and so we do have parents that are that, you know, come with us. They have been coming with us to Jefferson City every year. So there are parents that we can mobilize to support. And just wanted to know how we could be involved. And then also on that note, just bring up the PAC has had its meeting, and we have put on our schedule for a potential February 3rd day of action. And so we're going to be in the process of starting fundraising and things like that, but wanted to run that by you too, Mr. Carroll, to see if that's in alignment with what you think is going to be best for us.
Touch on your advocacy day, yeah. The sooner the better this year because of the state audit. We need to get down there and our parents talking to legislators, let them know what we're doing, what's going on. And then as far as signing signatures, once the Secretary of State approves the ballot language, the title language, then you get to start collecting signatures. So there'll be sign-up sheets. I'm sure they'll be distributed to every school district, to every local board, for them to give out to their parents and PTA members or whatever, for when they come to meetings or whatever, go out, sign the signatures, get their signatures, and make sure you need to roughly have about 10% more just because of the lie factor, people, you know, signing them, not giving the right address or whatever. So, but yeah, that will probably take place sometime starting, I'm guessing, possibly as early as November or December. So I will certainly let this board administration know when that occurs.
And what's the number of signatures?
You have to have 4%, I think, of those that voted in the last gubernatorial election from 5 of the congressional seats. You need to know that Republicans are wanting to change that initiative petition process, asking the governor to also call this special session during veto session, when they're going to try to strip the Democrats from 1 congressional seat, and also add this initiative petition, making it hard where you've got to get support in every congressional district for initiative petition to pass in the state, which they know is a killer. So Senate Democrats have vowed not to let that happen. So, I mean, because they're going to try to stop the abortion language remitted once again out there. And so this would fall under that as well. So it's going to be an interesting veto session, to say the least. Because, I mean, quite frankly, if the Republicans ram through the redistricting proposal that they want to and make it a 7-1 map, to do away with Cleaver's congressional district, the Democrats have vowed that all hell's going to break loose, quite frankly, next January when they go back into session. They're not going to let anything pass. And so, you know, there may not be a lot getting done next year other than the budget. It's hard to say at this point. I mean, politics is just mean and nasty right now. And so there's a lot of things up in the air.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Carroll. I apologize. I will have to jump off for another call at 11, but I just wanted to bring up that I understand, our platform document is not something probably going to be read by a lot of legislators. But last year we did include on that platform support for legislation that authorizes extreme risk orders of protection. That
I didn't hear you.
We had extreme risk orders of protection on our list of legislation to support as a tool to protect schools from individuals that pose a risk for violence, which would have stopped the shooting at CVPA.
Okay.
Sometimes known as a red flag law.
Right. You certainly can. I mean, this document doesn't necessarily need to be ready until the 1st of December. I mean, I think the board voted on it last year in November at the board meeting. So we have plenty of time to add, subtract what this group thinks should be in it. Again, this was just a starting point, and I'm willing to put anything in it or take anything out that this committee deems appropriate.
Are you
Thank
trying
you.
to keep it
I
to
was just
6?
trying to shorten
Hold on
this
one
document
second.
because last year it was 3 pages, and I think we need to get it down to something that we can have a pamphlet like this. It's just more direct to certain points, but again, we can take out things and we can put things in. I'm open-ended.
Okay, I was counting 6 bullets and I wondered if you were trying to stay within that frame or, 6 to 10 or what did that look like? Not 3 pages, but, what number are you trying to land on?
Yeah, I'm a big fan
kind
of the 1-pager and keeping it brief. I just think that I feel very strongly that that's something we should advocate for and include, despite the fact that the political climate is not such that we are likely to be successful.
Gotcha.
While Mr. Carroll's looking, are there additional questions or suggestions related to the legislative priorities?
I do have.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Mr. Carroll, could you kind of give us an idea of the status of what you know about the FEMA and the SEMA funding?
The only thing I can tell you right now is nobody knows. I mean, I don't know either when the funding's going to be here, what's going to be released. mean, the Trump administration is trying to cut back on that funding and leaving it up to the locals. In fact, I was having a discussion about it at the Missouri Athletic Club last night, where I stayed. You know, they were talking about how it's going to help the city and what's going to happen. And nobody knows at this point. I mean, maybe you all know something more than I do, but I had not heard. You know, you and I were talking about, you know, the federal government finally released some of the federal funds for
Yes.
education, you know, so I think they'll come around, but who knows what the Trump administration is.
But what about the state funds?
The state funds should be coming. I mean, Keogh's already indicated, I mean, the $100 million there that was part of this, the special package, that should be appropriated this fall. I mean, so,
It's usually appropriated by July.
well, but this was a special session, so the money's gonna roll out a little slow.
Yeah. And so our
And
schools are
Steve,
waiting.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you who makes the decision? So, you know, we know the funds get appropriated, but then, you know, how do they get from point A to point B? Who decides how they're
legislature
distributed?
Appropriates, but then it has to go to the Office of Administration. OA is the one under the governor's orders that would release those funds. I mean,
Thank you.
the governor could withhold some of those funds. He has that ability, or he cannot do anything and just let OA go ahead and distribute the funds directly. That's how that works. It comes down to Office of Administration. They're the ones that actually write the checks.
Thank you.
Are there additional questions or suggestions related to platform? Seeing none.
Again,
Yeah.
I think you all have my email. If you have any suggestions, please just let me know or let the superintendent know and she can get them to me or Ben, just whatever works. And we'll consider anything. And so the next time we meet, then maybe I'll have a little bit different working copy on what we want to do.
Yes, I was just gonna say, as an informal proposal, if folks in this committee could send myself and co-chair Collins Adams any suggestions you have regarding key legislative priorities, or as well the support and oppose sections of the platform. So as Mr. Carroll said, right, key legislative priorities is really what we focused on in this conversation today, but we do have a platform that extends beyond that as well. So you know, we'll have to work out whether or not we want to stay with the shorter or a slightly longer set of priorities. But I do think we definitely have the opportunity to include more ideas more broadly into the platform. Thank you, Ms. Fantini. As long as everybody's amenable to that, I think we can move on to the last bullet point on our agenda, potential issues in 2026, although we've already talked about that to some extent. Steve, is there anything you want to add before I have a question for you on this bullet point?
Well, it's our understanding that there's going to be a big push next year for statewide charter school expansion. And if they can't get it statewide, then they're going to go to all communities of 30,000 or over. Now, the problem with that is, like a county or city that has a 30,000 population, there could be several school districts within that. And so, you know, that's the school boundary. So, but anyway, they will push for that next year. They will push for language to allow GR to go into the voucher program, just because I do believe it will be successful. So that will be a big one. They'll probably be asking Kehoe for more than $50 million. And that's where Lincoln Huff comes in the Senate to try to stop such. So those would be the big items. And then I've talked to the President Pro Tem of the Senate, Cindy O'Laughlin, about the audit and said, listen, we're on top of it. We know what we need to do. School board and administration making the changes to make sure nothing like what he has put in the report. But I said, some of that in the report is wrong. And I said, it's just misinformation that he didn't get it right. And so I'm trying to put those fires out now and said, listen, we don't need the state to come in. You just need to let them work it out and everything's going to be just fine. So hopefully that's the case. Like I said, I talked with Representative Brad Christ yesterday, and he's running to be the new majority floor leader in the House, and he will be speaker, in my opinion, in 4 years. So I told him the same thing. So he said, well, that's good to know. I'm glad. He said, if there's any fires, you need to put them out now, which we do. And so that's kind of where we're at for next year, in my opinion. Obviously, there'll be the same old bills out there, the critical race theory bill and parents' bill of rights, which is crazy, and parents being able to sue the school board and taking away the local control for the superintendent's salary from the local school board. All those will still be out there. So we'll be fighting those. So, but the open enrollment and the expansion charter school and the money for the voucher program, they'll be the top three issues that we'll have to be looking at. And again, on the local control issue of our package, I put in, if open enrollment were to pass, we need to have the opt-out provision for San Luis Public School because of these mandates that we have. That's our saving grace. So.
Thank you for that summary, Steve. Are there any questions on potential legislative issues? I have one if nobody else does. This is more of a, I guess, a broad thought about approaching legislation moving forward for us as a district. I had the privilege, and it's also part of the requirements of my job as a volunteer school board member, to do the Missouri School Board training on Saturday, and had the opportunity to talk to a number of school board members who are from very small rural school districts that were able to attend and get their training done as well. I continue to see, and I know we've talked about this before, I know we're in agreement on this, that the partnerships that can be made with rural school districts and urban city school districts, I think are just good ones, right? They're facing a number of issues that are not quite exactly the same as our issues, but they overlap in important, meaningful, values-based legislative ways. Are there issues that rural school districts are really concerned about right now that we can do our part to partner with them to help get legislation across the line, where that partnership can then also lead to support for us from them?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we did last year, really the last 2 years on the open enrollment bill. I mean, for the very small school districts in the rural area, open enrollment means school consolidation is what that means. And I mean, that destroys a community, a small rural community, just like us having to close a school here hurts a neighborhood. And so they're concerned about that. So we've been able to work with them in the Senate to stop it. Now, the House, they barely got it across, with 83 votes, one more than needed or two more. But in the Senate is where we've been able to work with that state legislators to stop it, because they really believe that should open enrollment go in, they'll probably lose 20 to 30 school districts that have to consolidate. And they don't want that. Right? So that's just an example. And I mean, I said this before, when this school district first hired me, I was an outstate legislator. And I said, I think that I can be that bridge to you working with other outstate legislators. I said, you shouldn't have to worry about your city delegation. They ought to be there with you anyway. It's the outstate legislators that you have to work with and make them understand that many of our problems, yes, are unique and different to theirs. But, they have poverty. They have free and reduced lunch kids. I mean, they have the IEP kids, and just not as many as we do and concentrated. But yeah, I mean, there are areas where we have worked very well with state legislators, quite frankly, to save us.
I know from the conversations I had that the four-day school week continues to be an immensely important issue. I would also say that I'm losing it a little bit. That the standards that are changing around accreditation is a big concern for them. I know it's a big concern for us. Is there something that we can do on that front? I may be beyond where the legislation process is at this point, because there may have been things that have already passed. So that's where we're going.
Well, like last year, Senator Joe Carter had a bill in, and it got out of Education Committee, and they didn't get to it on the floor because they were filibustering other things. But to do away with basically the MSEP stick in the standards.
Yeah.
And allow, you to use the nationally recognized accreditation standard. School districts have that choice and get away, from being judged solely by the State Board of Education. And so, yeah, there's outstate school districts are looking at that as well. She's an outstate legislator from down by Chapel.
Right.
So, yeah, we've got some areas there.
Thank you.
Because the MSEP 6, some of those standards you're not going to get to, or your school districts that are performing well are going to be provisionally unaccredited.
Right. Yeah,
That
there's
is
big
crazy.
changes coming in the next couple of years that seem like it's really gonna cause a big problem for both rural and city
For a lot of
schools.
schools,
Yeah, absolutely.
suburban as well.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Are there additional questions, thoughts?
Just praise for Steve Carroll. It's been a pleasure working with him through the years and finding the Venn diagram that we can work together between parents and the district and the folks who are employed by the district. And I work with the Missouri AFL-CIO and the Labor Council, and whatever we can find the sweet spot in the Venn diagram, it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. As I've stated before, and I mean this sincerely, having been in this business now 30 years, it's been an honor to represent the San Luis Public Schools, and it's certainly changed my life around and my perspective on how I look at things. Without a doubt, this has been my favorite client that I've ever had because I love public education. I loved it when I was in the legislature, and I just thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your advocacy. Thank you.
I've said it before in different public sessions, but we're greatly appreciative of your work that you do up there. I don't know anybody better to be doing it. So thank you.
It gets a little rough at times.
I've heard that. I heard it's a little rough up there. And also thank you for coming into town to talk with us today. That's immensely helpful. Absolutely. To help us start getting our priorities in order for the upcoming legislation session. So if there are no further questions or concerns, I would be asking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
I'll second. That was fast.
I guess we'll go with Mr. Clemens for the motion and Dr. Dino for the second. That's correct. Thank you.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
Dr. Borishati.
Yes.
Dr. Berry.
Yes.
Mr. Clemens,
Yes.
Ms. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Charles,
Yes.
Ms. Nolan,
Yes.
Dr. Dino.
Yes.
I believe Ms. Fatini left, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Mr. Carroll,
Yes.
Dr. Pollock.
Yes.
We are